Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the DucksNPucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard, and we have a holiday edition of the show. We hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. We know that Christmas is coming up and New Year's, and this will probably be the last show we do before that, unless there's some other crazy trade breaking news, which we've got 2 of those to discuss on the show. We did talk about the Trouba trade on the last show, a little last-minute addition, as you guys know, we put in the beginning of that show. We will go more into depth on that trade on this show. We have the Fowler one to talk about as well. We've got Cronin versus, Keith Yandle, I guess. We'll probably talk about that. More trade rumors with the Ducks going on. Some things with the team we'll discuss about the lineups. They finally broke that losing streak, which was rough. We'll talk about that and a little bit of the league news as well. But before we dive in, Eddie, you know the question. What are you drinking?
I stopped drinking, Mike. I stopped drinking so the Ducks win a game, or actually go to a 10-game winning streak. And I'm not going to drink, so I'm not cracking open a beer right now at all. But you know what? No, Mike, I'm excited. I'm proud to announce that Samuel Adams, which is my favorite beer company, they launched my favorite beer, Cold Snap. I found it at the store, Stater Brothers, and I was ecstatic last night. I didn't buy a 6-pack last night because I would have been tempted to drink it. So I was like, no, I had to be good for the day to go to the office. But you know what? When I got off work, I drove straight home. Before I came and talked to you, Mike, I grabbed a 6-pack and boom, cheers to you, Mike. So, Mike, what are you drinking? I'm drinking something different, too. I usually have a Pink Whitney shot or some Ultras or some Seltzers, but this beer is hitting the spot. Nice little 5.3% alcohol. I'm going to have fun with this tonight.
Nice. I'm just doing my Jocko and vodka this time again. So I'm rocking and rolling with that. I've been doing the Jocko thing lately. So, yeah. That's about it, man. Nothing too crazy. We got some stuff to discuss, my man. There's some crazy times in Duckland lately. So if you heard our last show, we did talk about the Trouba trade. We kind of gave our initial like WTF stuff and whatever, and then you had the Fowler trade. So we'll kind of talk about both those first, and then we'll talk about some stuff about Cronin, some other rumors, a whole bunch of other stuff, and all that, and then we'll talk about some of the games maybe towards the end. Kind of mix up the order this time a little bit. Try and talk about the things that people want to talk about in the beginning. As far as the Trouba trade, Eddie and I talked about it. We were confused in the beginning of what happened. Some news came out later on that changed some of the stuff, I guess you could say, that happened. The Ducks made the deal, and then you had the Rangers signing Shesterkin to this crazy 8-year deal. And it was $92 million and whatnot, so it kind of makes sense why they didn't want to take on a big cap space thing. And we also found out from Elliot Freeman that the Ducks did try to trade Fowler in this deal, and it didn't go through, at least that part of it. So it seems like Verbeek made this deal with Trouba and sent Vakanainen, sent the conditional, 2024 pick over there, and it all kind of worked out that way. And then a little over a week later, you had the Fowler trade that went to St. Louis. You had an upgrade in the 2027 draft picks. The Ducks went from a 4th to a 2nd, and then they also got the prospect Jeremy Batuka. That's correct, as you heard it, or we'll just call him Jeremy B on this show. But the Ducks did that and then retained 38.5% of Fowler's contract. So that's kind of where we landed in this last week or so. What do you think, Eddie? What do you think about the Trouba trade now and the Fowler trade? Now that the dust is kind of settled a little bit, we've seen Trouba in action. We can kind of talk about that in some of these games as well. Just kind of what are your overall thoughts now that we know kind of, some of the negotiation that happened, the Trouba trade that didn't work out, and then obviously the subsequent Fowler trade afterwards.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Trouba trade, so I'm good with that. I think he's been playing well the first few games with the Ducks. He looks more relaxed, more poised. There's not like the weight of the world on his shoulders, so I like seeing that from him. He's stepping up. I remember that Montreal game. I believe it was his first game. He was stepping up a lot and doing things he normally wouldn't do in New York because he'd be ridiculed by their piece of shit fans. But yeah, that's I think long term he'll work out. Hopefully, if not, we can flip him. But I liked how he brings that extra physicality to the game, and he can just not worry about anything but playing hockey, like I mentioned in the last show. Now the Fowler one, I'm excited to talk about that, Mike, because that was a Saturday morning, and I'm like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, I think Elliot Freeman is the first one to report it. Boom, something going on when St. Louis and Fowler, and boom, they got traded. I think it's a good trade. I think it was time. I know we talked about it in the offseason that both the Ducks and Fowler, they both wanted to move on from each other, and they wanted to kind of a change of scenery and give Fowler his last remaining whatever years he has left in the hockey league, and let him experience something different and let him win somewhere else. I know a lot of fans were divided too because half the fan base seems to hate Fowler and blame him for every little goal that goes in. The other ones have the emotional attachment. I know a lot of fans too, Mike, got pissed off because he was 9 games away from 1,000 with the Ducks, and people just felt that was unnecessary. But I mean, you can't hold on to a player for emotional attachment. You have to let him go. He wanted this trade to happen. It wasn't just the Ducks like, hey, you're done, blah, 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 get out of here. I believe he asked for it in the beginning of the season. Ducks facilitated it. And you can't gamble on that. You can't just have that emotional attachment as a management and be like, hey, well, let's keep him for 9 games. Game 999, he gets a broken foot or snaps something, he's out. You just kind of lost a trade asset, and you held on to him just for an emotional attachment. And it's not fair to him or the team or the winning ways. But I'm happy with the trade. I think they got a great return. And like I said, I wish Fowler the best of luck.
Yeah, he posted a nice statement too, or at least the Ducks posted it on their website. It was a very, very nice one, talking about the fans and the owners and his time in Anaheim. And I feel I'm kind of conflicted too, going, on non-emotion like you talked about, and then going on the fan side. Yeah, I'm a little bummed. It would have been nice to see him get 1,000 games. You remember the same thing happened with Perry, and a lot of people are upset about that and this and both that. So, on that side, being a fan, I get it. It's like, oh man, he could have done, been there and done that, 1,000th game and whatnot. But maybe, like you said, you had like timing with this, right? And Fowler in the beginning of the season wanted to be moved. That's what Elliot Freeman reported. You remember we heard different stories. We thought that maybe he would be gone at the beginning of the season, and then there were other people saying that it would be closer to the trade deadline, and obviously that's what happened. I mean, of course, the trade deadline is still a little bit of ways, but I mean, we're obviously closer to it now, and that's ultimately what happened. I think the writing was on the wall, though, once the Trouba trade went through, and then Elliot Freeman came out and said that Fowler was going to be part of that deal. I think pretty much, 99% of the people listening, y'all knew that. I mean, the writing was on the wall. It was on the wall at the beginning of the season, but it was really on the wall with the trade with Trouba going down and him not being part of it when it was part of that plan. So I think the interesting part of this is what happens with the Ducks blue line. Where do they go from now? I got back to doing some of the podcast polls. I know I kind of got away from that a little bit, but I put one out there again just to kind of see, what people thought about this trade and where it would go. And I was surprised about the results. So I put it out on X, and I said, hey, after these 2 trades, do you think the blue line is better? Do you think it's worse? Do you think it's the same? And 55% of you thought it was better. 10% thought it was worse, and 35% just thought it was even, which I was surprised about that. I thought more people would say it was the same or worse. Going by the comments, again, it's X, and it seems like the people that spout the negative stuff are the loudest ones on there, but more of you thought the blue line would be better, and that's how I feel. I feel like the blue line will be better. I think it's more of a question of how much better it will be. You're looking at the Ducks right now. And the senior guys on there, you have Trouba, Dumoulin, and Gudis. And then you've got your younger guys that can rotate in. More now Lacombe, who's picked it up and scoring in the last couple of games and doing great. Hellison, who has been playing well, but had been scratched lately. Minty as well, and Zellweger. I mean, you got these 4 guys in there. Right now, as it stands, the Ducks started the season with 8 defensemen. They have 7 currently. So you're getting 3 of these 4 guys in every night. If Cronin and Verbeek want to stick with the 3 senior guys. So, there was a little bit of a logjam, which Verbeek mentioned in his press conference, adding Trouba and not, moving Fowler, even though he did get Verbeek out there, but, got Vakanainen out of there. But, trying to fix that, he kind of did create a problem, right? Because he brought in Trouba, and then you had 4 veteran guys on the line, and really clogged up things because the Ducks were going with those guys in these last couple games before the Fowler trade. So it kind of made a mess of that. And Verbeek also talked about balancing out the left-hand, right-hand shooters and trying to get those younger guys in there. So I feel like Verbeek did create a problem bringing in Trouba, and then he kind of fixed part of that with the Fowler trade. I think that he was trying to do everything in one trade with New York. It did not work out, but I felt that he thought Trouba could add more, being a captain, his leadership and whatnot, as opposed to Fowler. So, my thoughts, this isn't from anybody else, but I feel like he could make that trade for Trouba, and then he could do the Fowler one later, which ended up happening, within about a week or so, and it all kind of worked out. So that's kind of what I look at. I almost look like option A was trying to trade Fowler for Trouba and some kind of deal to New York. It didn't work out, so then option B was get Trouba now and then trade Fowler later. What are your thoughts, Eddie?
No, it makes sense. I think Fowler was kind of the odd man out in this thing, especially after they got Trouba. You can't have that many veterans and just have our youngsters sit out. I want to point out Jackson Lacombe, too. It seems like his game kind of started blowing up after that Fowler trade. He got more of an opportunity. During that Toronto game, he played 22 minutes and 24 seconds. That's a season high for him this season. So, and he's on he's played 4 points in the last 2 games he's played. I think he really stepped up to the thing, and I think with that Fowler trade, like players like him and the other youngster players, they have it in their mind that, hey, our management group, they have faith in us. They traded pretty much a Ducks royalty. He's been there for the last 14 seasons, and they're willing to trade him and give the faith into our young guys too. I think that speaks a lot about the management. It kind of would pretty fire up our young guys. It sucks because he was Mr. Duck. Like he's there from the beginning. He lived with Niedermeyer, and everyone thought, and I think everyone and a lot of the fans that kind of messed him up too, Mike, is everyone expected him to be the next Niedermeyer. There's never going to be another Niedermeyer at all, and everyone should have focused on Fowler being the next Fowler, not the next Niedermeyer. So I think that kind of set him up for failure with half the fan base that doesn't like him and thinks everything's his fault. But he wasn't that bad. It was one of those things where it seemed like maybe he didn't want to play here. Maybe he's waiting for something else. But he's a good sport about it. He's not gonna pout or sit there and, like other players have done in the past, refuse to play. He came out each and every night and gave it all. It's 110% he could. Obviously, there's times where he was playing a little bit cautious, but it's like he doesn't want to get hurt and be stuck in Anaheim. He wants to move on and start a new chapter in his life. And like I said, I wish him all the best. But I think this is a huge opportunity for our young guys to go out there and blossom and show us what they got. You mentioned, too, Cronin wants to start moving Zellweger to the left or right. Yeah, you can experiment with these things. You can give them more time on ice. You don't have to scratch these young kids over and over again. They need to play. Defensemen are besides goalies, defensemen are probably one of the hardest to develop, and they take time. You can't just you can't be Cale Makar coming in right after college on his first game, his first shift, he scores a goal in the playoffs. That's rare. That's a rare gem. It's not going to happen all the time. But I think the Ducks management did a good job with these trades. Yeah, we were both skeptical about the whole Trouba trade, and I still am. I think they shouldn't have. They should have got a little bit more for taking his whole salary, but maybe they want him for the future. Maybe they think that him coming to Anaheim, that cap that he has, it's not going to really matter when he starts really producing and throwing the body. And he's blocking a lot of shots too, Mike. All the games he's had multiple block shots. So he's a factor to alleviating the puck and alleviating kind of some stress that the goalies have.
Yeah, you hit on a couple of good things there. One of them it's funny about the Niedermeyer thing. I had a fan hit me up about that and talked about, like you said, I feel like the fan base is somewhat divided on this. There's the people that love Fowler, and he was the longest standing Duck on this team, right? And now it's Gibson, who we'll get to in a little bit too, because there's more news about him. But you have that, and then there's the fans that I think that they thought Fowler was the next coming of Niedermeyer or Scotty 2.0, and he never turned into that. And it's not a fair shake just because, yes, like you said, he lived with him, was mentored by him. People felt that maybe he was going to be the next coming of Scotty Niedermeyer, and he wasn't. People didn't take him for just being Fowler on the team. So I think that's a very valid point that some people have. They feel that way, and it's kind of a setting him up for failure because that just wasn't going to be him. He's a different player. The other part with Trouba, yeah, I feel these games that he's been in, if you watch him and play, he has the stay-at-home mentality, but he's very versatile. If you watch these games, especially you and I were talking before we did the show, that Montreal game, the very first game he played in, he looked fantastic. He's very willing to take the body, but he's also, his hockey IQ is smart, and he plays the puck too as well. And you saw that in all of these games, really, that he's played in so far. I felt the Montreal one was pretty strong. I felt the Columbus one was pretty strong. And what I like about him is that he's willing to take the body but not give up scoring chances. And that's kind of been the knock on Gudas lately. You guys all know my better half loves Gudas, loves him crushing people, just like I love him crushing people too. But I've noticed this season with Gudas, which has been a concern, is that he'll go for these big hits, he'll swing and miss, and then it will lead to a scoring chance and sometimes a goal for the other team. I feel like Trouba right now, is a better deal than Gudas. I mean, he does the hits, but I like his game just overall. He creates opportunities. He was creating opportunities late in that Montreal game. I really thought the Ducks were going to pull that out in regulation. Instead, they had to go to overtime. Then they lost in the shootout. It is what it is. But he's in there in the mix, and he's really playing the puck offensively and defensively. I see times where he pinches to keep the puck in on the offensive zone, and then there's times in the defensive zone where he's able to clear the puck and get the play at least out to the neutral zone going the other way. So I really like those aspects of the trade. I think the big question with the Trouba trade is do they flip him or keep him long term? That's my thing. Some people I've talked to as well, they think that he will be flipped this trade deadline. I don't know about that. I think that's too early to tell. I more or less would think Dumoulin would get traded over Trouba. That's kind of my thought. If they're going to trade a senior guy, they're obviously not going to trade Gudas. He's the captain. And they're not going to bench Gudas because he's the captain. I know there's been people out there that have not been happy with Gudas's play as well. But I think the Ducks keep him at least till the beginning of next season and have him try to mentor these younger guys that are now going to have more ice time. And if they do trade Dumoulin, you can bring Hines back up or Luneau or one of those guys from the goals and have it back. And then you would have 2 veteran guys in the blue line and 5 younger guys and have them work out, and then have Trouba and Gudas mentor those guys. I'm really curious to see from this now. It's like, where do we go with this blue line? A lot of you felt it got better. Is Verbeek going to stick with it as it is right now with the 7? Or is he going to move a Dumoulin out? Because I just don't see him moving Trouba, at least not right now. I don't think you would go get this guy and then bounce him in 2 months. I mean, I don't know. I could be totally wrong. I just don't see that. I think that they would keep him at least till next season before they either decide to sign him to an extension or flip him. I think Verbeek wants him to mentor these guys at least through the end of the season. That's just kind of my feeling. But what are your thoughts as far as this blue line and where it may go the rest of the season, Eddie?
Yeah, well, you mentioned too having 2 veteran guys and 5 younger guys. I kind of disagree with that. I would want at least one more veteran guy out there, kind of like even it out. You have 3 veterans, 3 rookies, or 3 younger guys. You can't kind of. I don't know. I don't think that would kind of work. Just having the 5 young guys and 2 old guys is kind of not enough Chiefs, or too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, or kind of that saying how it goes. You need some kind of accountability on the blue line. You can't have Cronin watching everyone. You have to have that veteran presence in the blue line. Like, hey kid, you screwed up. Do this differently. Do that. If there's only 2, I guess 2 heavy hitters, I kind of want to see someone on as a veteran, kind of more offensive minded. I know Trouba has in the past been offensive, but I want to see someone as a true, maybe kind of a lower. Let me see, Tyson Berry, kind of veteran guy that can move the puck around. It's kind of smaller guy that can mentor the smaller guys and teach them how to play hockey at their size. Obviously, Gudis and Trouba are totally different. They're going to pound their body around. They can't teach that kind of finesse that these younger guys and smaller guys need to move the puck around, to avoid those hits, to absorb the hits, and make some good plays. So I think that's something we have to really think about. As far as the Trouba trade, Mike, I'll keep saying this, and I bet you it's kind of like dead already, but if Gretzky can get traded, anyone can. All depends on how Trouba is playing and how desperate a team is. A team like Edmonton that needs defense, and other teams that are going to be running for a cup that really want that defensive aspect, that really want a player like Trouba, they can come and just wow the Ducks. Like, hey, we'll offer you X, Y, and Z. You take half his salary and for the next 2 seasons, and boom, they have their player and try to make a cup run. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Could it? Maybe. But I think you're right. I think that Verbeek picked him up for a reason. He wants that mentoring. Maybe he wants them, our younger guys, to be a little more physical on the blue line. And he's blocking shots. Like I said, that's a really big quality because a lot of the Ducks players in the past haven't been really blocking shots. And we've seen our goalies get 40-plus shots a night, breaking records of having the most shots faced in a game. So it's kind of a wait and see. Germelin, I wouldn't mind trading him somewhere else, but if we can trade and get another veteran person, like I said, a kind of a smaller, more finesse kind of defenseman to teach these younger guys like Zellweger, he's not the biggest guy, he doesn't have the biggest frame, but he can move the puck, but just try to teach him how to play against these older men, these guys that can line them up, that can kind of push them off and kind of like not bully, kind of bullying them off the puck. And really show him how to be a true offensive or two-way defenseman. I think that would be a big factor and pay dividends in the future for the Ducks.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I am in the same boat as you. If they were to just trade Dumoulin for whatever picks, offensive player, or whatever they were going to do, and then go with 5 young guys on the blue line, that is a little scary. I don't know that Hines and Luneau are ready. It didn't seem like Luneau was ready in the beginning of the season. They had to send him down. So it might not work that way. So I'm with you, too. If the Ducks do trade Dumoulin, I'd rather them get in somebody that's a two-way defenseman that can help mentor these younger guys. I think that would be the best solution out of all of it, if they do even trade him. They may not. They may ride with him, Gudis, and Trouba as the 3 veteran guys, and then rotate the other 4, which I'm not totally against that either. But if they were to trade Dumoulin, I'm with you. I think the best thing would be to get someone else that's a veteran two-way player that can help mentor those guys. Because I don't know if those other guys down the goal with the goals are ready yet right now. But it's just something to keep an eye on. That's one of those names that it really hasn't been mentioned, I don't think, by any of the big reporters or whatever, but that's a guy I would keep my eye on just to see if something does happen. You just never know. But overall, I'm okay with these trades. The Fowler trade, they could have retained 50%. They only did 38.5, not the end of the world. The Ducks upgraded draft picks. Yes, it's not till 2027, but they did do that. And then this Jeremy guy, I mean, you have to look and see how he does. He was really, really good in the Canadian Junior League offensively. He kind of is not as good in the AHL and ECHL, so I kind of want to see where he's going to go. He is a big kid, We've noticed that trend with Verbeek drafting and dealing with prospects that are usually bigger size players. The dude's 6'4", he's my size, just over 200 pounds. So he is a big boy. I don't know if he'll crack an NHL lineup. I mean, maybe he will. It seems like the stuff that's on him is that he has a solid two-way game. He can get going. He's pretty good positionally on defense with a good hockey IQ from the scouting reports. So I don't know. Maybe he's a guy that can make it in there. It seems like at first everybody was like, who the hell is this Baka Batuka guy? Like,
same here.
Right? I was like, I gotta look up this guy. Like, how do I pronounce this guy? Oh, his dad played in the NFL. Cool. Like, I'm like, who is this guy? Right? But it seems like a Verbeek kind of guy to add in there and see. And I don't know. We'll kind of see what happens. So I'm not like super excited about these trades. I don't think that they're awesome and home runs. But I do think that they improve the Ducks. The question is just going to be how much are they going to improve the Ducks? That's what we had also on Instagram. Chris J. Campos, he asked us a lot of questions. Appreciate you listening to. And do you see Trouba with the Ducks long term? And I think that's the two questions out of these trades: is how long is Trouba going to be on the Ducks, and how much is this going to improve the team? And I think that's what we're going to have to find out. There's no answer to that right now. I think in the short sample size we've seen, I mean, and yes, the Ducks, were on that crappy losing streak, but I think it has improved the team. Has it improved it significantly? Is it fantastic and awesome? No, I don't think it's that great, but I think it does help out the team on the blue line a little bit, and it's just kind of a wait and see what happens in the next couple months. With this team, and now the younger guys are going to get more time, so I'm excited about that. I mean, you kept seeing, Minty getting scratched, which was frustrating, and then the other guys were getting scratched, and that was annoying too. So, if anything, the Ducks went from 8 to 7 defensemen right now, and the younger guys are going to get some more ice time. So I'm all for that, Eddie.
Yeah, same here. And I want to mention about Trouba too, is he has 13 block shots in the 4 games he's played. That's amazing. I think he's just throwing his body. He's sacrificing himself. Yeah, he's a professional, but he's still sacrificing himself for a team that he's just barely new on. It's. I think that's cool. Also, too, a lot of New York fans were complaining about he's a penalty magnet, the elbow magnet, and those games he's played with the Ducks, he's only had 2 penalty minutes. He's been playing 22, 17, 20 minutes per game. I think he's been playing really disciplined, and like I said, he's just been kind of playing like himself. He's kind of regaining that joy for the game back again, because it's probably hard, like I said, playing in New York and having to deal with everyone blaming you for everything. I'm surprised they haven't blamed him for the poverty in New York or something. It seems like he was getting thrown out there. And I know it's not easy for him, too, having to leave his family behind. I know his wife is doing that residency, so he has to kind of, I think he's just, like I said, he's just rejoining the game and having fun and playing hockey again. I did want to touch on one thing too, Mike, about Gudas, that I don't think you've mentioned, or no, we both haven't mentioned, and we both haven't talked about. I don't think anyone has talked about it in the whole entire league. The difference of this season compared to last season is he got named captain, so he's just not out there worrying about himself or his teammates. He has to worry about the press. He has to worry about dealing one-on-one with the coaches. He has to mentor everyone, not just, that C means a lot, especially in Anaheim, especially kind of taking it over after Ryan Getzlaf was one of the greatest captains in NHL history. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone, especially coming he's still new to the team, and giving him that. So we have to give him some credit, or some credit, but I forgot the word I'm trying to say. But yeah, it's not an easy task to go and kind of step into someone's shadows as big as Getzlaf's and kind of build this team. He wants to win. He wants to do best, and I think he's the kind of guy that wants to put his players first. And as long as they're doing well and he's screwing up, I think that doesn't matter to him. But if he can make the rest of the team around him better, I think that's a true elite captain right there. And I think that's what he does night after night. He makes other players around him a little bit better by whatever he does in the ice. So I think this is temporary once he gets more comfortable and once he gets into that role, because right now it's just a brand new thing. Just like being in a brand new relationship, you're trying to be the best and show that hey, you're the best. It takes a few months to actually get that mold and be yourselves with one another. I think a few more months after holding the C, it's going to come to reality, and he'll get back to that Gudis ways of being that powerful force, throwing that bomb of a shot, and hopefully he gets his first goal of the season soon.
Yeah, another part, it's kind of interesting. This just kind of came up now since you're bringing that. Trouba was a captain at New York. Maybe Trouba was brought in not just to mentor the young defenseman, maybe he's brought in to mentor Gudis a little bit. I mean, it's not far out of the possibility, right? Like you said, Gudis is a brand new captain. He's following in the shoes of Getzlaf, who was the Ducks captain, forever and a day. The Ducks couldn't figure out who to replace him with for a little bit. Now he's in there trying to fill that role. And now Trouba is not as, got as much pressure and stress on him playing in New York, which New York sounds like it's a shit show right now. Which we can talk about in a little bit when we talk about trade stuff going on. But the Rangers sound like a complete mess right now. They've been getting their ass kicked in some of these games, and there's other stuff going on with them. But maybe that's part of it too. Maybe you bring in Trouba, who was a captain of an original 6 team. You take the pressure off of him. He helps mentor young guys, and maybe he helps mentor Gudis with his leadership role. I mean, maybe that's part of Verbeek's thinking in that. I just kind of hit me in the head right now once you made those comments. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but maybe that's part of it. Maybe Verbeek looks at it as a dual purpose. I bring him in here, mentors the captain, mentors the young guys, and see how it works before I decide if I'm going to extend him or flip him.
Yeah, definitely, and especially with Anaheim. Like Anaheim is a small market team. They're not big, and it's big for us, Mike. And we might think, in the fans that listen, we think Anaheim's the spectrum of the universe, but it's not. New York's a huge market team, and those fans are even crazier. Those fans are in that arena all the time, win or lose, and when they lose, they're giving them hell. It's kind of a little step below Canada. So I think Trouba's used to that, and he can bring that kind of experience. Like, hey, look, I had to deal with this. So the small kind of stuff that Ducks fans might say, and don't get me wrong, these players do read some of the stuff, and it affects them. Like, they're human beings, and I wouldn't want that any other way. But Trouba can kind of come along like, hey, you're a first-time captain. Here's how I handle this. Hey, this is going on. If you're losing the locker room, here's what I did. And kind of like piece together some things and give more, more tools in the toolbox for Gudis to be that better captain. I think he's doing a good job as a captain, seeing his post interviews, taking responsibility, not blaming anyone. I like that about him a lot, but I think Trouba's going to kind of help him grow and help the younger guys grow. It's like, okay, we got a guy, I guess a big-time guy from New York. Some guys might see it that way. And I think it's gonna benefit everyone. If we do trade Trouba, at least we got some of the experience he could bring to our young guys and experience as a captain to bring to Gudis. A good point too, Mike. That was a really good job on bringing that up. I didn't even think about that, so that's really good.
All right, and that brings me to the Game Time app to check out. I don't know what you use for your tickets and whatnot, but it's a great app to get good deals on. It's gametime.co. Check it out, and you can pick up some really great deals on tickets. They had some great ones on this last road trip for the Ducks. Not including the game in Toronto, but some of these other games was really good. But take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Tickets Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code THPN for $20 off on your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code THPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. So we talked a lot about the Ducks and the trade and all that stuff and everything, and just kind of going into more of this trade stuff, I guess, is kind of what we'll talk about now. You had, again, Chris J. Camp was asking, who else gets moved before the deadline. Kind of like I said, we're just kind of going all over the place on the show, but you had more news. Elliot Friedman talking about Carolina. He said Carolina was in on this Blackwood trade where he ended up. You had San Jose and Colorado. You had Blackwood and Gorgiev going back and forth. There were other parts of the deal, but you essentially had a goalie trade. And Elliot Friedman's like, well, whoever you believe, there's kind of like, different talks about the Ducks and Carolina talking about trades and whatnot. So there's that in there. He had Maverick 87. Is Gibson gone by Christmas? I don't think that that's going to happen. You have the holiday freeze coming up where there's no trading from the 20th to the 27th, so I don't see that at all. But I think it's interesting to keep an eye on that. I think you were happy with this trade with Colorado and Carolina. I'll let you dive into that. We've talked about Gibson before, and this has come up. And then you've also got a situation with New York. You've got Capo being scratched and him being upset. That's another team to look at. The Ducks obviously made a trade with New York. Will they make another trade? So it's kind of a lot going on right now, Eddie. I don't think anything's going to happen in this next week. I could be wrong because we've had stuff happen in the last couple weeks. But kind of let you however you want to dive into it, whether it's the New York situation or this trade with San Jose and Colorado. What you think? Because Colorado's your second team. But what are your kind of thoughts on kind of what's going on in the league? Has this kind of been a lot of movement, in this month of December?
Yeah, I want to take this time to throw out this real quick. I want to just cheers my beer to everyone that's doing the last minute Christmas shopping or having to drive in this traffic. It was horrible to drive today. I hit a tumbleweed, Mike, on the freeway because I couldn't move. Scratched up my truck a little bit. Got to get that fixed. But people just lose their minds and lose control during the holidays. That's why I don't really like the holidays, because people, it's supposed to be a time of cheers and loving, and everyone just hates each other, and it's going nuts. So I want to just wish everyone just right now safe travels, and if you're feeling just kind of a weird way, breathe. Just take a breath. I get irritated a lot. I had to take a breath today, but yeah, I just wanted to give my people cheers too. And you know what, Mike, too? I'm almost done with my Christmas shopping. I have one more person to get, and I'm done. So cheers to everyone that didn't procrastinate, and if you guys did, I've been there before, so I wish you all the best. Okay, so let's get into this, Mike, because we were throwing everything all at once. So I guess that was my little ad read to myself. So you can shoot me some Ducks and Pucks merch later for that. But yeah. So the first trade was the Avalanche trading what you call him, Juice, to Nashville for Scott Wedgwood, and everyone in the Avs fan base were pissed. But they kind of upgraded a backup. Scott Wedgwood came in there and played well. The 4 games he's played, he looked solid, and shut everybody up. And then the big trade, which a lot of teams were in on this Mackenzie Blackwood, because he's playing a hell of a season, getting peppered with shots. I guess he was the Gibson of San Jose, if I can just throw that out there for Ducks fans. It was really hard for him to like see all those shots, but he kept them in a lot of these games. I think he at one point had 52 saves in a game, and his save percentage wasn't that bad. They went ahead and traded their starter Georgiev over there, and they gave other assets to San Jose too. I'm not going to go into that. A lot of Ducks fans probably wouldn't know who I'm talking about, but I think right now the Avalanche are content. They're going to see what they have in Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. They have 2 Woods. Actually 3 Woods, Mike. Wood. Miles Wood, Scott Wedgwood, and 3. Maybe it's like 3 Luxa Charms or something, or I don't know. Too many Woodies. I don't know. But I think they're content right now. So I guess the focus is on Carolina. Their goaltending is kind of spotty. You have that youngster coach they call him. Right now they're playing right now live, and he's up 4-0. But he's been kind of shaky and spotty at times, and I think they want more of an established person, an elite goaltender. Freddie Anderson's been dealing with a lot of injuries this season, so I don't know if he'll come back and be the same form. But Carolina wants that kind of win now. They have the team. They have Nikas is playing pretty well and just destroying it, and he's probably one of the top players in the league right now. They need a little bit more, I guess, juice to go up there and be a really true Stanley Cup contender. But I like what I'm seeing from this team. So I think they'll be one of the teams that could probably be in on him. I think they're making calls. I think the issue, too, I want to say Colorado was in on Gibson, but the price is too high, as it should be, because Gibson, once he gets traded, and we've seen this with numerous players from the Ducks, I think once he gets traded to a different team that has a more structured balance, it has a better defensive core in front of him, that their offense can score goals and really be those comeback kids the Ducks were back in the day, I think he's going to thrive. And I think that trade will make the Ducks look bad, and it'll be a still, even if the Ducks don't retain any salary, I think what he can bring and what he's capable of, his potential, and even at his age, I think it's going to just be a really good choice to get. And I don't think the Ducks want to sit there and just kind of be like, oh, man, we only got a second-round pick and a third-round pick for Gibson, and look at him. He's a Vezina, a goalie at his age, or he took this team to a Stanley Cup or a final. So I think it's going to be really really hard to trade Gibson. As far as the holiday freeze too, Maverick, nice name. I love the movies. If that's what you're referring to, but I don't think any trades are going to happen anytime this week. I think you're going to see a lot of paper transactions of this person's getting sent down, this person's being sent down. I think it's more of a paper transactions for the holiday freeze. But I think right now it's safe to say that no trades will be made in the NHL. And like you said, Mike, anything can happen. It might be a surprise. So we have to wait and see. We mentioned another team too, Mike, that can be in on maybe Gibson. I don't know if you want to mention that right now or you want to hold off on that.
No, yeah, you can dive into that now. Go for it.
Okay, since we're talking about goalies, and I'll jump back and talk about New York too. But yeah, Stolarz. I know you guys know him. Stolarz is having a pretty good season with Toronto Maple Leafs, but he's out 6 to 8 weeks. So now they have to rely on kind of youngster Wool to be their goalie. And Hilbiger, something Hill, I forgot his name. Sorry, I don't study other teams' names. It's too hard for me to do that. But it's kind of hard to see if Stolarz, if his kind of healing time takes longer. If it extends, he comes back, he's not the same goalie. I know injuries can happen. Who knows if they might want to make something happen with Gibson, which is going to be extremely hard with their cap. But I know Toronto is not shy of getting some big names or making splashes. I know the Ducks and the Maple Leafs made a trade before for a goalie, which is kind of heartbreaking. It's kind of more heartbreaking than the Fowler and Corey Perry trade that you made. But they did acquire Jaguar way back in the day. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember that one, but that was kind of heartbreaking for him to go over there. But that's a possibility. And you never know if a goalie gets really cold and the team really wants to just kind of get that spark up and need that extra boost. Skinner for Edmonton, I mentioned Edmonton too. Skinner's playing amazing right now, so I don't think that's a possibility. So I think right now the only ones looking for a goalie is Carolina and possibly Toronto, but you never know what's going to happen. I don't think Gibson will be traded until the deadline, and I think the Ducks should not trade him until the deadline unless they get a well offer. The deadline, people go crazy, and they want to just throw everything but the kitchen sink, and it's just teams go out of control, and we've seen numerous teams overpay for players. So I think the best bet, just let Gibson ride it out until the deadline, let him improve his numbers, let him kind of like sell him and like advertise him, like wax him up, like here's what we have. Don't bite on the first thing that sounds enticing, because you have to just hold off and you can always get something better. My bad about to going on my rant again, Mike, but.
Oh, no, you're fine. It's all good, man. That's what we do. We go on our little rants. Yeah, I think you're right, though. You've got this situation with Stolarz. He got hurt in that game against the Ducks. So he's out. He had to have surgery. They said he had a pebble in his knee, something kind of weird. So he's going to be out for a minute. Carolina's obviously trying to figure out what they're doing. That name has come up. I think you're right. If Gibson's dealt, it's closer to the deadline. So that's one to look at. We talked about Dumoulin. Another one that you had mentioned and we kind of talked about a little bit before the show is kind of the situation with Zegras. What's going to happen with him? As you guys know, he had his surgery on his right knee, and thank God we thought he was going to be done. I think I mentioned this before when we saw Leo Carlsson get hurt in person. We thought he was toast, and he came back soon. And now Zegras, they're saying, is going to be out 6 weeks. So the question with Zegras, it kind of goes with Gibson in a sense. I've talked to some people about this too, about Gibson and kind of setting him free, letting him go to a team that can contend and win a cup. And the Zegras thing, we'll kind of dive into the Cronin thing too, basically. But before I get really to that, I mean, kind of what are your thoughts? He's going to be out for those 6 weeks. He comes back the end of January, it looks like. Do you feel like the Ducks should try to set him free, kind of a thing, or is that more of a Cronin problem? Kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, and then we can kind of dive into the Cronin Yandle craziness.
Yeah, it's kind of really frustrating. This injuries, and he started playing well before his injury too. He started stepping up. You notice a little pep to his game, So I don't know what's going on. It's really hard to really talk about Zegras and kind of setting him off. He's so young, and like compared to the long scheme of things, we do have a small sample size. We saw what he can do and saw what he's capable of. Bless you, Mike. We saw what he's capable of. I think he has a lot of potential, and I don't think the Ducks should give up on him that fast. Maybe his game kind of went a little bit different. Maybe Cronin needs to maybe let him play a little bit more his game. You can't just play a certain style you're not used to. He was working. He played well under Akins, so maybe that's a factor. But I think it's just the injury thing. He has to overcome that. He has to get stronger and figure out how to come back to that Zegras form. And who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to play. We know he held out. Maybe he's tired of being in Anaheim. It's not easy playing. Especially these players are such a have competitive nature. It's not easy to play on a losing team, and it kind of seems like the Ducks. It seems like forever if they're gonna just get out of this slump. And we always keep saying like, oh, 1 more year or 2 more years, but it's like watching some of these games, like man, it seems like we're backtracking, and that gets really frustrating. Another thing too, Mike, I wanted to point out when you mentioned Capo Kaku got scratched. He wasn't happy about that from the Rangers. I believe that, and I think it was reported last trade deadline that the Ducks tried to acquire him from New York, and they were trying to send Vetrano over there. I'm not sure what other assets were going, but New York didn't want to do that. That may be something to look into now, since they scratched him and he doesn't seem like he's fitting in over there. I'm not saying a Zegras for Capo thing. It's going to take way more to pry Zegras out of the Ducks' hands, but I think that's something to look forward to. I think the Ducks should definitely, and I think maybe the Ducks are hopefully talking about acquiring him when they were trying to get him last year. He's a big physical guy. He's big. He has offensive upside, and he can throw his body around, so I think that's someone Verbeek would like. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ducks were able to pry Capo Kaku off of New York, and he's a Duck by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen there because New York, I mean, they put in that massive deal for Shesterkin, who's been playing like crap lately in the last couple of games. So, and then now there's all this talk about other players and kind of like, I don't know, complete fire sale, but just a whole lot of stuff where they're trying to figure out, what's going to happen with the Rangers in that situation, freeing up cap and moving some people and whatnot. And I am curious. There were definitely rumors with him and the Ducks last season, so that's another one to keep an eye on too. And of course, Zegras' name comes up all the time. So I mean, that's why we were talking about that a little bit. But of course, he's hurt, and we'll have to kind of see how he comes back as well. But it kind of goes into this next part where we've talked about the locker room issues and the things that have gone on. And now you've kind of had this thing. We've talked about Cronin. Like you said, Zegras is happy there. Some of these players are happy there. They're trying to go other places. What is like this effect on Cronin on this team? And you had Keith Yandle go on Spitting Chicklets. He talked about going to Northeastern. Again, this was like 20 years ago. But he talked about going there. He said that he called Cronin, wasn't going to go there. He got chewed out on the phone and kind of left it as that. And then somebody asked Cronin about it. Cronin was like, I don't remember that. He vaguely remembers Yandle kind of put out a statement saying that the recruiter probably talked to him, but he doesn't really remember that situation. And you kind of thought that was over, but then Yandle goes on, Spitting Chicklets again. And then I guess I guess it was his mom that remembered the incident. Said no, Cronin came to the house and talked to him and yelled at Yandle, and his mom had to interject. So this whole thing kind of went on, and obviously it's fueling this whole thing, going back to this locker room stuff that the Spitting Chicklets had put out originally. So then it's this question of is this team not playing for Cronin? We've talked about them having heart and being competitive, and what we're seeing on the ice and what this issue is and how all this is unfolding. And I don't know. It's just kind of interesting because this whole thing, this latest thing is 20 years ago. So I kind of take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, Yandle can't remember the whole story correctly. His mom has to correct him. But then you've got Cronin saying he doesn't remember, which I don't know. Maybe Cronin doesn't remember. I mean, maybe he yelled at a lot of people when he was at Northeastern that didn't go to the school. I don't know. I don't really know what happened there. But I think the bigger issue is are the players happy playing in Anaheim? Are they happy playing for Cronin? It seemed like, especially that 10-game streak where they had won 6 games out of 10. We had talked about it, them joking around on TV, seeing them in the interviews and everything going fine. Even that comeback from behind win that they had against Columbus, you saw them passing the hard hat in the locker room. And, I don't know, some people had mixed reactions to that. I mean, it seemed the mood was fine there. They're, happy to win that last game because they had that crappy road trip. But, just kind of bringing it up and discussing it because this kind of came up. I don't know if this will go anywhere again. I don't see anybody asking for Cronin about it. Maybe they asked for Beek. I don't know, but just kind of curious your thoughts on that whole situation. Like if the players are happy playing for Cronin or this thing with Yandle. What your thoughts on it are.
I remember. I think I was in 5th grade. My mom told me that my principal yelled at me because I was being a dickhead. That's the first thing that went. Mike, I think this is kind of ridiculous. I think, okay, so first of all, I'll throw this out there. I see a lot of people on social media taking Yandle's side. A lot of people that claim to hate Spit and Chicklets and everything they stand for, called them, toxic and masculinity, whatever they want to say. People that jumped on me for making comments, but you're going to believe a podcast that started off by talking about and degrading a woman, that how she defecated on him and making fun of her, which they call Shitty Cindy. You're going to believe a podcast like that to bring on credibility? 20 years. Mike, I don't know how you were when you were 16, 17 years old, but I was a little shithead. I was an asshole, and I didn't respect authority. I thought everything and everyone was wrong but me. So, and I was always taught, too, that if you commit to something, you do it. So Yandle, what was the story was broke was he committed to Cronin's school and then he decommitted. Who knows how that conversation went? Who knows if Yandle was being a little cocky little prick and was just saying, hey, whatever, and gave him pop-off attitude. I don't know about you, Mike, but if some little punk pops up attitude with me, I don't give a shit who he is, who he thinks he is. If they're over 18, you're going to get popped in the mouth. If you're under 18, we're going to talk to your parents. And if your parents won't do anything, I'm going to pop them in the mouth. That's the way it is. Man up. I don't know why he's crying about this and goes on. And his mommy has to tell him what happened. You were so adamant about a story when you first told her about the phone call and this and that. Bullshit. I think something happened. I don't know if he just popped off and Cronin put him in his place because his dad didn't know how to do that, how to handle a spoiled brat. Or maybe he's right. Maybe Cronin's being a piece of shit and he was an asshole and being a dick to him and he shouldn't have said that. We don't know. No one knows. But the court of public opinion, I don't know how you can just deem someone right or wrong without irrefutable evidence. I think that's the most irresponsible fucking bullshit thing. And if you're one of those people, then you need fucking help. You need more therapy than I do. That's just so dumb to do that. It's innocent until proven guilty. But no, people are just kind of destroying sides. And I get it. A lot of the fan base thinks it's Cronin's fault. They hate him. Oh, yeah, he's Mr. Bad Boy. He's the reason why the Ducks are terrible. Reason why that you're working a dead-end job or your car sucks or you're the reason why that your favorite player got traded. No. Let's get a grip in reality now, Mike. That's not the way the world works. You keep blaming the coaches. You keep blaming the GM. When are you going to start blaming the players to take accountability for themselves? Because the last few seasons, the last few coaches we had, it's been the same thing. They find things to blame the players on. They find Bob Murray. Yeah, I made comments about Bob Murray's alcoholism, but you know what? That's a real disease, and he had some issues going on. He went and sought help, and who knows? I hope he's doing well. I hope he's doing the best. But when are we going to stop blaming everyone but the players? The players need to be held responsible. If Cronin's that big bad wolf that you want to be, good. These players haven't had a coach like that really besides Carlisle, but they're not responding to anything. They're just running wild. They're at a daycare, kids full of freaking sugar and sweets, and they're just not doing anything nice. They're not bringing the product on the ice. And we're blaming and throwing everything on Cronin. Cronin's, it's just man, I hit a tumbleweed. What am I going to say? Cronin's fault that I hit a tumbleweed. I think that's bullshit. And you know what, too, fans, if you want to blame someone, why don't you blame yourself? we go to games, Mike. I've been to like 5 games so far. I don't hear you guys pumping up the boys. I barely hear cheers. I hear more chants from the Kings fans than the Ducks fans. So if you want to blame someone for this team not being motivated, why don't you take a look at the goddamn mirror and blame yourself? Because it's kind of bullshit blaming everything on Cronin. He's not perfect, and and we talked about this, he's not going to be the coach of the future. But to sit here and throw everything on him and using Keith Yandle and this little story as a scapegoat, just kind of like get your point across to get him fired and want him done. It's not going to happen. Come on, grow up and read into things. And I hope when all these perfect people that never said anything wrong, I hope things come up and expose you. And I hope you kind of just get the blame on everything, because I've been blamed for things before. I was in the military, so I've been a private in the military, so everything was my fault. If it snowed the wrong way, it was my fault. So I don't know. I'm going off, Mike, because it's been bothering me for a couple of days that how people are just kind of being hypocrites, especially the same people I've seen on X post different things. And you guys need to get a freaking life, or just get the hell out of the sport. Go watch soccer or basketball, because you guys are too soft for this damn sport.
Wow, you like mic dropped that sucker.
No, I threw my mic right now. I think it's broken.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you're trying to get the best out of your players, and is Cronin the guy that's going to get the best out of the players in the Ducks? I mean, I think Eddie and I have talked about it. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it's quite working. It's not resonating with the players. So we're not the ones sitting here saying, oh yeah, Cronin is the guy and he's going to be the one to fix the team and he's going to lead us to the promised land and all that stuff. But Eddie's right. At the same time, you've got to have accountability of the players themselves as well, and they've got to perform. I mean, they definitely got to do that regardless of who your coach is. I mean, you got to define who you are. You got to have a heart. You got to go out there and win. And, I mean, I saw some of that in that game against Columbus. They came back, Lacombe with that great goal at the end, and then they were able to pull it out in the overtime. Killorn picking up his play lately, too. And Killorn's playing pretty good throughout the season. A little streaky here and there, but he's been chipping in and doing some stuff, which we'll talk a little bit about the lineup here in a minute and kind of some things that we're seeing with the team in this last streak as we kind of get more towards the end of the show. But, yeah, I mean, the thing that I honestly don't even really care about this story about what Cronin said 20 years ago. I really don't care. 20 years ago, I wasn't the same person I am now, and I don't think any of us are. And I'm not saying that I dismiss Yandle's story. I think there is truth to it. Whether it was a phone call in person, I honestly don't really care. I don't care. Obviously, something transpired, and Cronin, maybe he doesn't really remember it or whatnot. I don't really care. I mean, maybe he yelled at everybody during those couple of years and forgets who he yelled at or whatever. And yeah, maybe he just said he doesn't want to know because he just doesn't want to talk about it. Okay, cool, whatever. I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't really bother me. I just think it's dumb, and it's something that happened a long time ago. And you know, when you have a podcast talking about it, causing up drama. You know, they talk about publicity, right? If you have good publicity or bad publicity, it's still publicity. And here we are even talking about it too, which we're just doing it because, you know, it's Ducks News and we like to address everything about this team regardless where it comes from. But I'm hoping this is just the end of this part of it. You know, if there's stuff going on right now and he's berating players now and there's stuff going on and it's a disaster, then yeah. I know on the Spitting Chicklets they said that they had people contacting him saying how Cronin was bad at Northeastern. Okay, cool. Again, you're going back to stuff that was 20 years ago. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like that, I mean, I get it. Yeah, that sucks. That's how the way it was. I mean, okay, cool. 20 years ago. So, to me, it's not really that big of a story. I think it's getting blown out of proportion. There's the people saying fire Cronin, fire Burbeek on social media, and that you're not really helping the situation. Like, okay, it's cool. Like, I can sit there and say that too. Who are you going to get to fix this team? I mean, we're going to get rid of the owners too? I mean, like, how far are we going to take this? Like, I don't know. I kind of ignore that noise especially on X. I don't really interact as much on there as much just because it just seems like there's been negativity on there. There was a lot of negativity after the Trouba trade, negativity after the Fowler trade on there. I don't look at a lot of it, but obviously people send me stuff and like, oh, this guy said this and this girl said that. I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care. So somewhere there's the truth in the middle of this. I'm sure something did happen 20 years ago, but the bottom line is I don't fucking care. I really don't. I don't care. Now, if this happened 2 weeks ago, then yes, I would care. I want to see what happened recently. But I haven't heard anything specific recently other than what happened last season. And I'm not going to go into all that stuff. We talked about that in the other show. Cronin's addressed that in an interview on Duckstream. You can go listen to it. Verbeek's addressed that too. So, and yes, Labushkin said the stuff he said. That was last year too. He's not on the team anymore. So there you go. So I'm more curious about what's going on right now. And again, I haven't seen anything. I mean, granted, we only see what we see on the TV, right? And what the media people say. But I haven't seen it. So I'm more concerned about making this team better and moving forward. And let's fix this team. Let's get it in a better direction. I felt like the Ducks were in a better direction during that 10-game streak. Then they had this, last 5 games. They played Vegas, which sucked. The Minnesota game sucked. I felt they did better against Montreal. Obviously, Columbus, they won. Kind of rough stretch. And they turn around. Now they're going to be kind of home and away in the next couple of weeks. And that's where I want to take that. I would rather look at, okay, how are we going to make this team better and get going in the right direction? I sitting here dwelling on 20-year-old stories. I just don't. I don't see how that's beneficial or anything. I just don't. I just. Why are we even dwelling about this? I mean, I don't know. I don't really have much more to go on that. I rather shift gears and talk about the team and what's going on the ice and how to fix it. But if you have anything else to add, Eddie, I'll give you that chance before we talk about the lineup and the stats and trying to get better.
Yeah, well, I just want to go out there. Like I know I'm really opinionated, and I know a lot of other podcasts. They kind of read verbatim to a script. Man, I'm thinking of a triple X, not X.
Whoa.
No, but you know what, Mike? What Mike always says what's good about me is I go off a script a lot that we have, and I say things on my mind. And Mike, you do too. When I start mentioning things, if something pops in your mind, and we just go kind of off and that kind of thing, and we're real and authentic. That podcast, it's for entertainment, and nothing against them. They do a good job bringing the players in and what they built. And I'm a fan of theirs too. It's just I think lately they're just trying to get anything for clicks. If you listen to their podcast, you have to go through like 10 ads before you actually get there. It's like you guys make a ton of money. We don't make that much money, and we don't even really get paid for the ads that we do. We just do it for kind of the small things that we do. But they're things for more entertainment. And like you said, Mike, there is some truth to the story, but I think both sides are kind of either one side's line or it's like 50% line. But it's like you said, how are you going to bring up a 20-year-old story? It's just, and no one else is talking about it. Like recently, when they brought up the whole Mike Babcock thing, you had other players of recent come out here and call him out. You had I forgot the other coach that was throwing racial slurs that got fired, but you had other players that coming out said, yeah, he dropped the N-bomb, and other players that weren't black came out and said, yeah, he was racist, he was doing that. And that was taken care of, and it was done. They were canceled. Now, if Cronin, like you said, Mike, if he was doing this right now to his players and berating them and doing that, then yeah, get his ass out of here. Fire him instantly. Like, I'd be 100% with that. Like, that's that's not even a point, but it just seems like everyone's blowing us out of proportion. It's fucking December. It's almost Christmas, and everyone's going crazy out in the goddamn mall parking lot, and everyone's going crazy on X. Let's just take a minute or two, at least a day or two, just to be nice to everybody. Like I'm an a-hole a lot, but I mean, there's a point where it's like I'm nice to people, especially during the holidays. It's just annoying, but like you said, Mike, I think we can move on from this. It seems like the Spittin' Chicklets podcast and Ryan Whitney, they have a personal vendetta against the Ducks. I know Whitney's just so bitter because he got traded and lost his chance of winning the Cup with the Penguins multiple times and numerous times. I don't think that they would have won a Cup with him on the blue line because he was a liability with the Ducks, a liability with Edmonton, and he wasn't that good after his first year with the Penguins. I think the Penguins got what they needed with Kunitz, and he helped them win. He played awesome with Crosby and helped them win, so congratulations to Kunitz, former Duck. But it seems like Whitney always has, if he has an opportunity to bash the Ducks, he will do it. If you guys remember, a long time ago after he got traded from the Ducks to Edmonton, that last game they played, he had some words to the coach and to the bench, was talking shit. So maybe he just needs a little Duck love. But You know what? I do want to end this segment, Mike, with the Spittin' Chickens podcast on a positive note. I did listen to most of the show before they started talking about the Cam Fowler trade, but Matt Duchene's interview on there was really inspiring and great. He talked about some of the stuff he went through in grief. Mike, I mean, the whole show, and I lost my father. It's been almost 2 years in January, and I really haven't dealt with it properly and handled it the way I should have. And I've been refusing to talk to someone, and just hearing Matt Duchene talk about similar things that I'm feeling and going through, it makes me more comfortable to go and speak to someone, a grief counselor, and kind of really start dealing with my dad's death the right way. So that's a positive thing I can take from their show. They do bring players on that give you that positivity. And if you guys want to listen to the rest of the show, Matt Duchene's portion is the greatest thing, especially if you're dealing with anything. I know the holidays can get stressful and people can feel sad and upset. We're here for you, number one. We always say that, but that was a good segment to watch. So I'm not just trying to bash their podcast the whole entire time and say the negative things, but we're going to respond. I'm really opinionated. I'm going to respond, but I mean, we're all doing the same thing. We're all podcasters, and no matter what disagreements I have, or I agree with your podcast or don't like yours, I still respect everyone that gets on this mic and talks about hockey. It's not an easy job, so I want to just cheers to everyone that does that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know you mentioned that to me too, so I want to go back and listen and check that out for sure. So yeah, and we're not going off on the whole thing. I just that situation. It's just kind of like, okay, like we're good, like all right, done. I'm kind of over it. So I don't have any more to add to it. Hopefully, nothing comes up more about it. But I want to just kind of finish talking
Mike,
about the actual team. Yeah,
I wonder if Cronin will go on the show and talk to Yandle and one-on-one. They can just kind of squash it, and maybe it was a misunderstanding. But I think that would be kind of cool if they went on. I doubt Cronin. I don't think Cronin's a podcast kind of person, but that'd be kind of like interesting to see both of them go talk head to head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's willing to do it, or I don't know if the team will let him do it. I kind of don't know how that'll work out. It would be kind of cool if they did, and then they just squashed it. I don't know. That would kind of honestly be the only thing I would think would really be worthwhile pursuing this, other than anything else. I mean, I don't see it going in any other direction. But if it was that direction, that would be kind of cool. All right. We'll talk a little bit about the actual, like, the team themselves trying to improve here. But before I do that, I did want to talk to you guys. I mean, I know we had a lot on this show, and that's why I'm glad we did all the stuff that we talked about first, because that's the big part. And we'll kind of talk about some of the games here and just kind of what we're seeing and how we can hopefully see the Ducks improve here coming up. But before I do that, I want to mention another sponsor through the Hockey Podcast Network, the DraftKings. They've got another deal going on here. This one's for the NBA. So I know not everybody's NBA, but if you listen to them, they have a deal going on now. You can watch your favorite NBA players. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And playing Pick 6 from DraftKings as an official partner of the NBA is a way to take a shot at even more cash prizes. You can download their DraftKings Pick 6 app, select 2 or more players, and choose if they will have more or less points of a stat. And speaking of gifts, the new Pick 6 customers play $5. They get 50 in Pick 6 credits. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Happy holidays from DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Hang on, I gotta play the little thing real quick. If it'll play, I gotta play that little announcement.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
All right, Eddie, what you got?
We should talk to DraftKings and see if they'd be willing to kind of half and half with us, if we can go on that Cameo app thing and get a different celebrity to read that little thing. Each and every podcast, or like once a month, a different celebrity, like Pete Rose or something. That'd be kind of awesome. No, I wanted to ask Mike. Have you ever been to a basketball game at all?
Yes, actually. So if you guys don't know, I growing up, I was a huge Laker fan. Dating myself here, watching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Byron Scott, Kurt Rambis, James Worthy, the 80s, man. I was all over the Lakers. And then, of course, Kobe and Shaq, big time in the 90s and the early 2000s. Huge basketball fan then. Not as much now. There's just some things I don't like that I'm seeing against certain things. I won't go into it because it's more personal. But, I used to be a huge Laker fan and watch. And in the last couple of years, not so much. I'm just kind of not a fan of some of the things that the league has done lately, and I don't want to get too much into it. But I was big, and I have been to Laker games at the Forum and at Staples Center. Also, I saw the Lakers in Washington D.C. too a while back when they were playing the Wizards. So it is fun to go to watch basketball in person. Don't get me wrong, it's great. I love it. It was fun. I've just kind of shied away lately because of some things. I'm hoping some things change in the league, and I'll get more back into it. But, I don't know if you've been to a game, but growing up, 80s and 90s, man, I was huge into basketball.
Yeah, don't worry, Mike. LeBron James will be gone soon, so you can come back and watch basketball.
I didn't want to say his name, but there you go.
No, you know what? My buddy took me to my first basketball game years ago. This is before I went to the Army. They played the Utah Jazz. And him and his ex-girlfriend had a big fight, and she got him those tickets for Christmas, and he took me. And you know what? I understand how non-hockey fans say they have to be at a game to enjoy it. I watch basketball with my best friend because he watches hockey with me, and I'll sacrifice that with him, but it's not as enjoyable on TV than it was live. I've been to one basketball game, and it was fun. It was a good experience. A couple stories, too, Mike, I want to throw out there real quick. I know we're getting on time, but we're not going to record in 3 weeks, so we can kind of take our time, right, Mike? But
Yeah, you're good.
I met one basketball player. No, actually, I didn't even want to meet him. His security came and got me and told me that he wants to talk to me. So we're in Vegas. I have my buddy with me, my ex, his ex, and then we're walking and we see Dennis Rodman, the bad boy of basketball. He's at a card shop signing things. My buddy's just taking a picture from outside. We're not going to go and pay for it. And at that time, when we were like a little budgeting, we're sharing rooms, so we weren't that that budget wise. But some big black dude came up to me. He's like, "Excuse me, sir." He wants to talk. Oh, no, he's like, "Excuse me." He wants to talk to you. And my buddy thought it was his girlfriend because she was, wearing some things that were showing everything, pretty much a bikini. And after she starts walking over there, he goes, No, not you. He wants to talk to him. He wants to talk to me. So I'm like, okay. So I walk over there. He's like, do you know who I am? I'm like, yeah, of course. You're Dennis Rodman. He goes, hey, thank you for your time. He said, you mind? I want to ask you about your tattoos. Because I have a lot of tattoos. And he's sitting there asking my tattoos. He's like, yeah, I have a couple myself. He's just exploring my tattoos. Where'd you get this? Asking me all these questions. Like, I'm answering him. He's a good conversation, Mike. He goes, pick any picture you want on here. I'll sign it for you and, for your time. Man, you know what? I told him straight up. I'm like, you know what? Thank you, sir. I'm a hockey fan. Most I won't cherish it, but my buddy's a basketball fan. He goes, bring him in here. Dennis Rodman got us 2 pictures. He let us, both of us pick 2 pictures out, signed it for us, and thanked us for our time. Like people, I guess you could judge a book by its cover. Him, the most polite, gentleman-like, like hockey kind of material. Like just, thank you, sir. It's like, and he was cool, and he was huge. Like you can't tell these basketball players how big they are until you see them in person, Mike. That was just a crazy story. Most recent, too, Mr. Olympia, a few years ago, the bodybuilders, we went to one of the things. I guess a lot of the basketball players stay at Old Town Vegas, less crowds. I'm getting a drink because my buddy's lifting. I'm not, obviously. I'm drinking. And then some dude talks to me, big black dude. He's talking to me. I'm talking to him. We cheers our drinks. Have a nice day. Enjoy your time in Vegas. The bartender walks up to me. He's like, did you get his autograph? I'm like, who's that? It was James Harden. I don't know what team he plays for now, but he was a polite guy too. So I can give the credit and give those kudos to those basketball players, especially Dennis Rodman. He was absolute gem. It was a pleasure to meet him.
No, that's awesome. I met him a couple times too in Newport Beach
That's awesome.
Fashion Island. Fashion Island when I used to work some like security job or something, but back in the 90s, working minimum wage, and met him a couple times. And I know he had some wild parties. He didn't make Newport Beach PD the happiest. But every time I saw him, I interacted with him. It was cool. I'd seen him there a few times, and he'd hang out, and he was cool. Yeah, I mean, they were actually pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not trying to judge the whole thing, but I just I'm not a big LeBron fan. So it's just kind of my personal thing. Once he's gone on the Lakers, probably I'll get back to it. I mean, I know he's taking time off or something. Something's going on where he's MIA.
Yeah, it's called baby oil, but I won't dive into that.
Yeah. I don't want to go down no rabbit holes and get accused of stuff, but whatever. He's on timeout or whatever. So yeah. But
back to hockey.
Yeah. So kind of just going towards the end and kind of wrapping up stuff. We're not really diving too much in the games that much on this show, but the Ducks had a rough time of it. We talked about it on the road trip. We had Trouba that came in there. They barely lost in Montreal 3-2. They got blown out in Ottawa 5-1. They were down 3-0 early in that game. Toronto, they played a little bit better and they lost 3-2, and then they had that great comeback from behind win. But some of the good news for the Ducks, we did get Leo Carlsson back in that game against Ottawa. We got Fabry back against Toronto. We found out Zegras is only going to be out 6 weeks and not the rest of the season. So, I mean, there's actually positive stuff. I mean, yeah, the road trip wasn't the greatest. They went 1-2-1 on there, but there's some positive stuff on there. I talked about this in some of the game recaps. If you follow them on there, even when the Ducks lose, I put a lot of analysis in there and stats and stuff like that. So I know some people, they don't read when they lose, which is fine. I get it. You're like, oh, screw it. You see that they lost, you don't want to read it. But I do put stuff in there that's kind of interesting facts, interesting stats or things that are going on, analysis and whatnot. And I think with this team, I'm really happy with Vetrano, Strome, and Terry. I think that they've really picked it up and been playing fantastic of late. They're kind of the ones that have been kind of leading the way. You had Vetrano scoring on a power play in Toronto. You saw Terry kind of a one-man show in that game against Montreal. Could have easily had a hat trick. So I like what I'm seeing with that line. And then, of course, the fourth line is kind of a mixed bag. You got Harkins, you got Lundestrom, again, Johnston on there. Colangelo was on there, but then he got sent down with Fabry coming back. So I think really the big thing with this team is just kind of trying to figure out what that second and third line are. And I think that's what they need to do. You've seen Killorn pick it up, Carlson back from injury. McTavish, he got a goal in that game against Columbus. He seemed to pick up his game again. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with this team. I do feel hopeful. I mean, I know they're only a couple games under 500, but I'm really curious about these second and third lines and trying to figure that out. I posted one on X, and you guys weighed in on there. I also posted on Facebook, too, and you guys chimed in on what you thought about moving people around and stuff like that. And I think that's what they need to figure out. If you're going to go with Carlson and McTavish at center, that's fine. Then you just got to find out who are your line mates going to be. I think Gauthier is another one to figure out. Like, does he play better with McTavish or does he play better with Carlson? And I think that's something that you want to figure out too. And then kind of just try to figure that out. I don't have the answer yet. I think they got to kind of experiment a little bit and get that going. I mean, now that you've got Carlson and Fabry back, and of course Zegras is out, you're going to have to kind of figure out something here in this next 6 weeks with Zegras out and how you want to deal with those lines, because we got to get some more offense, obviously, from the top 6, top 9, and you can't rely on one line. I do feel that, though, you've had McGinn getting in there, getting some goals. You've had Leeson in there, too, contributing here and there, and I like what I'm seeing with them. So that's where I'm at. I would experiment with those lines. I kind of maybe want to see like a Killorn, McTavish, Fabry line with Gauthier, Carlson, and Leeson. Kind of see how that works out. Or another idea is maybe you switch McTavish to wing, see if he does better at wing or at center. Something to kind of play with. But that's kind of where I'm at, Eddie, with what I've seen in these last 3-4 games with the team, is them trying to figure that out. I feel like they've done okay on the power play. They're just over 15%. Penalty kills just over 70. kind of need some work there. But those are kind of just my thoughts in this last couple of weeks. I don't know what you're seeing or what you're thinking, similar or different.
I think their best game they played was the shootout loss to Montreal. It was Trouba's first game. He almost scored. He almost created a scoring chance the first shift that he had along the boards. That little right-handed shot that he did, threw it on net. It could have made a difference. That would have scored. But I liked what I saw against the Montreal game. I did like what I saw against Toronto. Toronto's been hot. They're a powerhouse team. They have definitely elite talent. They have a franchise player on their roster too, and they came back and barely lost by 1 goal. I mean, yeah, like you said, the third period they disappeared, but I mean to kind of keep up with a team like that, it's kind of yin and yang. You're pretty much going to be the bottom team, and Toronto and their fans expect them to win the Stanley Cup. So that was a good one. The Ottawa one, I don't think we should kind of talk about. Like that was, I don't know where the Ducks were. They weren't there. And the Columbus one too. I was a little disappointed. I thought the Ducks would really want to rally and kind of thrash them and take them out, but they barely won. Mr. Michael Jackson Lacombe came out there and played a hell of a game. One thing too I want to point out is I think that I can speak for all Ducks fans that were complaining during the draft that were mad about the Ducks drafting drafting Leo Carlson over Fantalia. I think the Ducks made a great choice, and I think he didn't score a point in this game, Fantalia, at all. But I think the Ducks made one hell of a pick in Carlson. Right now at borderline, and we don't even know Carlson's ceiling yet, but I'd borderline pick him over Bedard. I think he's a fantastic player, and he brings more. I guess Bedard has more skill set than Carlson does. But what I've seen lately this season from Bedard, he's been bitching and crying about everything, not making the Four Nations thing. He's not scoring goals. He's tired of losing. Like, dude, shut up. You're in your sophomore slump. This is where you just be quiet and play the game and be the franchise player you're supposed to be. Carlson, he goes there and thrives each and every game, gives it 110%. I think the Ducks made a hell of a choice. And I'm glad, Mike, that we got screwed over and didn't get the first overall pick, and I'm glad we have Carlson.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm glad we got Carlson too. I mean, my only concern with him is just staying healthy. He's had a rough go of it these year and a half now or whatnot, and then of course that whole thing against Seattle getting slammed to the net, and then he came back. That's my only thing is hopefully he stays healthy. But yeah, I like what I've seen from him. They talked about that whole issue. He mentioned having headaches, so we all know what that means he had. The big fat C word when you get hit in the head, which unfortunately is what we thought kind of happened. I mean, he did get hit sideways into the net, but the way he landed, he hit his head, so that sucks. And I think I mentioned it before. I've had that happen to me a couple times. Doing karate and football, I've been knocked out a couple times, so. Explains why I'm a little crazy. If you're wondering why I'm a little off, but I've been through it a couple times, and I can tell you if you've never had it happen, it's very strange because I had it happen at least 2 times. One time when I was in my late teens, and another time in my late 20s, and it's weird because what'll happen is. Both instances, I got hit, and basically you don't remember anything for a few seconds. So that's what happens. You lose a couple seconds of memory. It's a weird trip, and I guess I've been okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm able to work and do all my things I need to do, but it's a real trippy feeling because. You'll have something. It's just hard to explain. You'll be doing something, and then it's like you fast forward 5 seconds, and you're just kind of like, well, what happened to that 5 seconds? That's how I can explain when you get knocked out and you get a concussion type thing. It's a very, very. I don't want to say it's necessarily scary. It's just kind of like you're just like, whoa, like WTF kind of a thing. So. I'm hoping Carlson will be okay and come back and be fine and keep on rolling and be good. For me, I played semi-pro football and played in college, and then I played on a semi-pro team, and then I was kind of after that I was like, all right, I'm done. I want to be able to walk when I'm older and be able to enjoy life, because hockey and football are brutal sports on your body. So yeah, but I'm with you too. I'm glad we picked Carlson. Fantilli kind of pissed me off too in that game against Columbus when Gibson covered the puck and he went in there and knocked it in the net. The refs made the right call. They said it was no goal, but they didn't call anything on Fantilli, which kind of irritated me. And then, when McTavish scored in that game, he got cross-checked right in front of the net, and he somehow gets a penalty, which made zero sense. And then, of course, Columbus scored on that power play, which pissed me off. So I was, and I'm not a big fan. I'm not one of those guys that likes to complain about the refs and how it affects the outcome of the game and stuff. I don't like to do that, but this one, I felt it could have, and luckily Lacombe got that late goal, and Cologne scored in overtime. The Ducks pulled this one out, and they won. But I was really, red hot during this game with the officiating. I thought it was terrible in Columbus. I don't know what those guys were doing. They missed a couple of those calls, and it really could have affected the game because you had McTavish scoring, and then all of a sudden it looked like the Ducks were going to go on a power play and have momentum. Instead, Columbus scores and scores shortly after that, and then all of a sudden now they're up 2-1. But the Ducks were able to fight back and pull it off, and that goes back to kind of even what we were talking about with the whole Cronin thing. It's like, where's this team at? Where's their heart? Are they not playing for him or not? And I don't see that. I don't. I mean, I thought they played tough in Montreal. I thought they fought it out in Columbus. Toronto, they did not play great, but they hung in there. And then, Ottawa, they got blown out in the first period, and then that one they were just kind of like, fuck it, we're toast, unfortunately. I mean, they did try to fight back in the second period and put a lot of shots on net, but they just couldn't really get a whole lot going. So, I'm hopeful for this team. And I was talking with, if you guys know Trent Sullivan, the 21st Duck, he had a little get-together. I call it little get-together. This guy cracks me up. He, he had his heart... well, he's had a lot of surgeries, but he had a anniversary party for one of his surgeries this last weekend, and he invited me, and I was talking with a lot of passionate Duck fans there that were like, hey, I listened to you and Mike and Eddie and Ducks and Pucks, and it was kind of cool talking to them. But and a lot of the points I brought up in the show, and I said of talking to people, those were a lot of the people I was talking to this last weekend. But I was cracking up, Eddie, and you'll laugh at this, because I went over to his house. We're both from Anaheim, as many of you know. And I go over there to hang out, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a few people over and whatnot." And this guy's like a celebrity, man. I go to Trent's house. We've had him on the podcast in an interview. I go to his house, and there's 100 people there. I'm like, holy crap, dude. I'm like, I mean, if I get 10 people at my house, I'm thinking I'm having a rager party. I'm like, oh my god, dude. I go to his house, and I spent a couple hours there, and just, there was several people that were Ducks fans, and we just having this big powwow about the team, and all the stuff that we've talked about in this show. A lot of it I've echoed from that get-together, but it was just funny. I really appreciate Trent, his friendship, him coming on the show and stuff like that. And I mean, that guy, he is super popular, man. But we all kind of came up with the same consensus. It's kind of what you and I talked about too, Eddie, is that with this team, right now they're a little bit below 500. I expect them to be around there at the end of the season is where I'm at. I know Verbeek had his press conference, and he talks about, let's be a playoff team and do all this stuff. Even with all these trades, that you and I just talked about in the beginning of the show and all that kind of coming full circle on the show, they're not there yet. Now, obviously you got the freeze coming up. Probably not a whole lot happening here the rest of December, but then it picks back up in January leading into the trade deadline. And I'm not going to rehash everything, but we've talked about some things that the Ducks can do and some movement and things like that. I mean, if Verbeek goes berserk and does some crazy shit after the holidays, I mean, maybe. But I see this team as a 500 team towards the end of the season. I've seen improvement. I think overall it's been better. Yes, they had this little rough stretch here, but I think if they can play more like they did in Montreal and Columbus and do that going forward, I think we're still going to have entertaining games. I mean, yeah, the Ottawa game sucked, but and of course that Vegas game sucked. It seems like every time we play Vegas, it sucks. But I'm hopeful. I think that this team is more so going in the right direction. I don't see them quitting yet entirely, as far as some people have said. So, I'm not 100% happy with what's going on with the team. I think there's some things that they can do better. But I still think we're still trending up. It may not be super up, but it's still at least, a steady incline, I guess is how I would put it, Eddie.
Yeah, it's and I give a big shout out to Trent. He's an awesome guy. We always talk to him when we go to games for some reason. We always run into him. Really good guy. So I love the conversations with him. Verbeek's comments, Mike. We talked about this off the show too. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. This focus is on winning, trying to get back to our styles. Blah blah blah. It brings me Bob Murray vibes. Like, as a Ducks fan, I know a lot of you don't want to hear this either. You guys don't want to hear this bullshit. Like, stop talking and do something. Number one, we're not going to be put up a position to win this season. That's like out of this world. If the Ducks end up doing something and winning the Stanley Cup, that's going to be buy a Powerball ticket, buy a lottery ticket. It's not going to happen. It's just crazy how just come to reality and speak the truth. I know the owners probably don't want to hear that. I know they dictate probably a lot of what is said because they're owners. Obviously, they can pretty much do what the hell they want. But I'm tired of hearing, I'm tired of hearing politicians talk about all the stuff they're going to do and they lie. And I mentioned this too with Bob Murray about how you're in 5th grade and you're voting for president, you're going to extend recess and put Gatorade in the water fountains and give free Sour Patch Kids every single day. I'm tired of hearing that crap. Let's see action. Like, if Verbeek really thinks this team is going to get back to its winning ways and put himself to fight for a playoff position, he should be fired immediately right now. No questions asked. Fire him. And if Cronin believes that, fire him too. That's bullshit. This team's not going to be winning. I'll be happy if this team is the bottom 10. If they're like above, let's say if they finish above the 5th lowest, I'll be happy for this team. For what I've seen this season, yeah, we have some games that are good, but the games I've been to, I'm 1-4, Mike, so far. And the best game we had so far, my only win was when that spontaneous trip when my buddy and I and you went to that game on that Sunday when they beat the Senators barely. But yeah, this team has a lot to work on, and I do want to mention too about Verbeek too, because I don't want people thinking I'm sitting here 110% defending him. I think that there's something wrong with his coaching style that's not bringing the best out of the players. Our old coach, Mr. Akins, he somehow was horrible, but he had a way of connecting with the players and bringing the best out of them. Look at the San Diego goals when he was there and how he got out of the players. He came for the Ducks. It seemed like our younger players were more developing better and being more creative and doing things more. I mean, yeah, they were more not defensively there, but they were just kind of playing their own game. And I think Cronin, what it seems like to me is he's wanting the players to play his game, but it doesn't work that way. Like, you have to let these players kind of run free at that time. So yeah, I really hope people don't think I'm just sitting here and jumping on Cronin's little duck down there. But I'm just trying to, like, my whole goal too, and criticizing and kind of throwing the truth out there is I want this team to be the best, and I want them to win the Stanley Cup. I want to go to games not expecting the team to lose, not going and running to the bar or to get a beer because I'd rather have a drink in my hand than to watch the Ducks play the final, 4 minutes of the period. It's getting frustrating, and I get it, fans, and I do. And I hear you guys when you guys DM me, and thank you for those DMs too and talking hockey. But yeah, something has to give. And I think Cronin, his issue is this is his first time being an NHL head coach. He's so used to being an AHL coach, a college coach, and kind of like coaching down to younger players that are trying to kind of develop themselves into making it to the NHL. Now he's dealing with players that are established, that are kind of in that cusp, that in that middle thing of being an NHL. I think he's learning too, just like any rookie, the rookie offenseman, rookie defenseman. And I mentioned too that defensemen and goalies are really hard to develop into this game. I think that same to do with the old school coach that's used to kind of developing semi-pros. The AHL, they're still professionals, but it's kind of semi compared to the NHL. And I think he has a lot to learn, and as long as he can kind of overcome his adversities and kind of go with the times and adapt to variable change, and get the best out of these players, then that's good. Now, let's come a few months, April, season's over, and these players aren't performing. Carlson's digressing. All our players are digressing. Maybe it's time for a change. Bring someone that's going to be more of the old, I guess, new school style coach of being a player's coach. But I do want a coach, if they bring someone in, like a player's kind of coach, to kind of throw some more accountability. That Spit Chickens podcast, Matt Duchesne was talking about Pete DeBoer, the coach of the Dallas Stars, how he's a player's coach. He's all with them, but he wrings their asses off when they need it. But he'll go and talk to them about it and kind of like explain himself. And I think Verbeek, we should give him a chance and let's see if he can kind of, like I said, adapt to variable change, adapt to type 1 personality, type 10 personalities. He can treat Gudis and Trouba a certain way because they're veterans, Vetrano, Strom, and Killer, but you have to kind of treat Leo Carlson, Zellweger, Zegras a different way. You have to kind of learn. You have to be a teacher. You have to be elementary school teacher because those, elementary school, those kids are just crazy. They have all personalities. You have to adapt to all of them. I think hopefully, and I wish that he does that and gets the best out of these players.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to, regardless of the coaching style, is do you get the best out of the players? And that's the question. And it doesn't seem like Cronin's doing it right now. I'm not saying you fire him this minute, but I know a lot of you out there are like, oh my God, just fire him. Okay, cool. So then we got to bring in someone else to figure this out. That's kind of how I feel. I sometimes feel like he's kind of like that Coach Kilmer in Varsity Blues, like you were talking about. You're talking about he's used to coaching younger kids and kind of telling them what to do and kind of being that kind of guy, right? And that's how Kilmer was, telling those high school kids what to do and this, that, and that, right? So that's the part where I'm like, oh man, this isn't gonna work, dude. And I think that goes back to the point that Andrew Knoll told us about, where the veteran players had issues with him, which would kind of make sense because the younger players are like, oh, okay, this guy's the coach, whatever, we're going to do what he says. But then you've got the veterans that are like, well, hey, hang on, man. Like, I've been coached by these other guys. Like, your style sucks or whatever. So that's what it comes down to. If he can do that and get this team going uphill the rest of the season, I think great. If not, and this team, goes downhill and tanks or whatever moves are made at the trade deadline and it still doesn't work out, then I think he's toast. I think he's toast at the end of the season. I don't see Verbeek booting him now. I'm not saying that that's right or indifferent. I just don't see it. I think he sees him going through the season and seeing what happens, and then he goes from there. But I mean, yeah, can you get the best out of your players? What works? Some people like being yelled at. Some people like being told. Some people like being shown. I've learned a lot of this. I talked about this on one of the other shows about now being a supervisor for almost 3 years, and I've managed 4 different groups of people now at various different assignments and things like that. And it's really reading the room, knowing your people, and trying to get the best out of them. And it's not easy. There's people I've dealt with that have been difficult. There's people I've dealt with that it's worked out fine and it's been great. But at the end of the day, it's how you present yourself, how you carry yourself, and can you motivate? That's a huge part of it. And I don't think it's at the point where everybody's like, F him. I don't think that's where it's at right now. I think maybe it was like that at the end of last season. That's all, foregone conclusion. We've heard that multiple times from multiple people. But I think if they go on a massive losing streak, 8, 9, 10 games, then it may get to that point. But I'm really hoping that they can get these guys going in the right direction, especially this we're almost halfway through the season. Get it kind of going the rest of the way and kind of see how it goes from there. And that's really it. That's all I really got to kind of finish off the show. I'm not down and out like some people are, doom and gloom on social media about some stuff. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, the world's ending and all this stuff, but I do have a little bit more patience, but I think if he just completely shits the bed the second half of the season, then yeah, man, it's time to figure out something else, and that's kind of where I'll end it. We'll kind of wrap up the show, but I mean, Eddie, if you got any final thoughts before we close out here, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I think Verbeek is right. Like, but it's like we have to position ourselves to win, and if Cronin is really not, if the players aren't really responding to him when it comes to that point, then yeah, I think he should be gone. I think bring someone else in, let these players breathe a little bit. If he's that cynical and really demeaning the players that way, you know what? It's going to come out. If you're a piece of shit, it's going to come out eventually, and the truth will come out and set you free, as they say in the movies.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Eddie, and we'll wrap up the show and see how they go. Just a reminder that this is the Old City Sports Network podcast as well. Check out all the sponsors in the description box. We wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and let's go Ducks.